What is this? What is this? If you're a passionate car or truck guy like I am, you've probably spent a lot of time fantasizing what it's like to own a specific car or a truck or a vehicle. You probably have spent a lot of time thinking about what it would be like to drive that every day, daily drive it, maybe just have a weekend warrior, or just roll up to a car meet in one of these things, or go out on date night, or whatever it is. You have these like ideas in your head of what it is like to own that car. So you save up all your money and you keep thinking about it and you keep thinking about it, and then you finally have it, you finally get that car, and it's just not what you expected. So that's why today I'm in my backyard and I'm gonna tell you guys about the 10 things that I hate about my Terminator Cobra, which is also my dream car. What is up, you guys? It's your boy Matt McAdam, aka Desert Chief, only on Driving Lines, chasing dust. And I'm coming at you guys today from my backyard. I was just washing my 2003 Ford Mustang SVT Cobra, and I'm sitting there going like, man, I just made a video on YouTube about how this is my dream car, and that was about a week and a half or 2 weeks into owning it. But after about 2 months of owning this car, there's a lot of things I don't like about it. Now I know what you're thinking, dude, how could you hate anything about your dream car? Well, here's the thing. I don't hate the car. I love the car. It's an amazing car. There's a lot of things that I love about it. But there's definitely a few things about it that I don't like at all. Dare I say that I hate. So let's get into it one by one. I'm gonna start off our list. First of all, I know it's still dirty. I was in the middle of washing it and I was like, I'm just gonna film this video now. So I'm gonna keep washing it after I finish the video. But we're gonna start off on the interior for the first couple on our list here. So number one on my list here is with the interior, and overall, I just really hate the interior of this car. I mean, I know that I need to like set my expectations because it's a 2003. It's not really like, you know, the new S550 chassis or even the S197 chassis, which came in 2005. This was the SN95 chassis that lived from 99 to 04, and you know, you could even say a lot of the interior pieces were around since the SN95 kind of started out back in the early 90s. So I get why, you know, it looks the way it does, but man, for the premium you're paying for this car and for how amazing this car is, the interior just really does not line up with the rest of it. And I'll explain why. There's an Optima battery in my passenger seat that comes in later. To name a few things, the coin tray thing, like who the hell is gonna use that? I get it, okay, you guys wanted to put somewhere for quarters and didn't think we were all gonna have Apple Pay in 10 years. But you know what? I would put a switch there. That's what I would do. If I'm gonna change that out, I'd put a switch. The back seat, completely useless unless you got kids or something, and then again, a car seat wouldn't fit back there. So I really don't know what you put back there besides like random junk, because none of my friends are gonna fit back there. Certainly not me, I'm 6'2". And then just like the plastic is just like everything rattles, and it's just like you're driving down the road and it's just like all kinds of stuff happening because it's all just cheap plastic interior. I absolutely hate it. So I think the only thing I like about it is really the seats, because they're leather and they have this Alcantara and they're power adjustable, and the front seats like, I don't know, 10 ways adjustable or something, and the back seats match, and you have the nice Cobra embroidery on there too. So that's all good and fine, but besides that, they didn't change anything about this interior from just the base V6 model Mustangs that you used to get. The only cool thing about it is you get the Cobra on the there on the steering wheel, right where the airbag, so that when you you know, launch this thing into a tree or a crowd or something, you get a nice backwards Cobra imprinted on your cheek. That's really about it. I mean, the rest of it's just super boring. The white face gauges with SVT on it are cool too, I guess, but I don't know. I'm just not a fan of the interior at all. Now that I'm sitting inside of this thing, I just want to give you guys a little idea of how poorly designed the seating position of this car was. Okay, so I'm sitting in the driver's seat. Again, I'm 6'2", okay? I got long arms, I got long legs. Now, with my foot on the clutch all the way in, I still have a little bit of knee bend here. Typically, you want to be sitting right about here so your knee's not quite all the way flat. This shifter is way too far away from me. I literally have to lean my body forward just to reach it. You know, in second gear, fourth gear and sixth gear, it's fine. First, I mean, you really gotta freaking, my arm is completely straight and my whole body is twisted up just to get it in first gear. So when you're driving around, you're constantly just doing this. Ford really messed up with where they put this shifter on the T56. It should be right about here, so that your arm, nice and bent, comfortable position, not like this. This is terrible. So that's my big gripe. This is number 2. Regarding the interior of this car and what I hate about it. It's terrible to drive. The mock audio system, I know they talked a lot about how cool this was back in 2003 and 4 when this car came out. It's complete junk. I mean, the only redeeming quality that my car has in terms of a stereo is this Sony head unit that the previous owner installed that has CarPlay. That's really it. The rest of the speakers in this thing, the door speakers, you know, the ones back there on the rear, whatever you want to call that deck, it sounds terrible. The bass, you can barely turn it up without it starting to blow everything apart. Just, you know, and I love listening to music when I drive my cars, and it's just not enjoyable in this car at all. And yeah, I get it. You want to spend $1,000, $1,500 on new speakers and make it a lot better? Sure, you can do that. But for a car that was supposed to be an ultra premium version of this Mustang, they really missed the mark on the sound system on this car, and that's even with an aftermarket head unit. Get out of this thing because it's a black car and it's oddly 90 degrees in the middle of February, so it's really hot in there. One more thing I wanted to talk about, before I close the doors. I really hate this. What do you even call this thing? The seatbelt loop? This is to like keep the seatbelt inside there so you can reach it easier. It's just, the seatbelt sits right below it. What is this even for? So when you have it in there, it gets all twisted up and bound up inside this little slit here for it, and then it doesn't want to go back in. It's like you pull it out and it just sits there like that. What is this? What is this? I get it, this is also with other Mustangs too, but this is just terrible. It's so inconvenient to get in and out of a car all day long when you're running errands and you have to deal with this thing just kind of like flopping down like that. Now, if you think I'm being a little bit harsh on Ford right now, that's okay. I paid a lot of money for this car and I have the right to complain about it as I please, especially considering it's my dream car and it's not exactly what I wanted. So anyways, let's get on to the other things that I have that I really hate about this Cobra. All right, and since I was just hosing this thing down, yes, I know it's not clean. I was in the middle of cleaning it. I'm just gonna hose it down again to show you guys why I absolutely hate the way water is routed throughout this car. Yeah, that's one of those things that like a lot of people don't really think about when like they're looking at a car that they like. But one of the things that drives me absolutely bananas about this car is how water runs down the back window here or inside the front windows over there and gets into the interior. I'm gonna show you that right now. Turn the hose back on. If it was a rainy day, or yeah, especially on like the rainy days we've had this season, which haven't been a lot to be quite honest, but you know, you get days where like there's water coming down here, just like that. First off, look at all this water pouring into these channels here. Yeah, I know that's what these are for, but half the time it's pouring here into the trunk and just getting all over my stuff. I don't have anything in here right now, but there have been days where all of it just pours down here. Is that trivial? Am I being a little too picky? Maybe. I also really hate that every time I wash this car and I dry it all off, there's a bunch of water stuck underneath the trunk here. Even if I do lift it up and I clean it, it still pours out from back here and leaves a bunch of marks. Sorry for the loud lawnmower. I guess my neighbor decided that Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock was a good time to start mowing his lawn, so can't do anything about that. Hope you guys can still hear me. Anyways, I know that I sound like an ungrateful teenager right now, and everything's not going my way, so I'm all pissed off. But let me just reiterate the fact that I actually love this car. I love driving it. I love everything about driving this car, except for that shifter position, the thing I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, it's fantastic. However, these are the 10 things that I don't like about it and I wish I could change, but a lot of these things I can't change. So let's move on to some of the more hard parts and stuff that like was in the engineering team and the performance that they did with this car that I absolutely can't stand. Okay, 2 more things regarding the drivability of this car that I absolutely hate. First of all is the clutch. Now, if you've driven a Terminator, you know that it has the world's heaviest clutch of any vehicle ever made. It's just ridiculous. It's like a leg press. And that's the stock clutch. Now, I looked into it. There's a jet flying overhead now. I can't make a video today. I thing about jets is you can't really see them based on what you're hearing. Oh, there he is. Going straight up. Well, that's kind of cool, I guess. Going straight up. Alright, so like I was saying, one of the things I absolutely hate about the drivability of the Terminator Cobra is the clutch. Now, this car has been known to have a very heavy clutch from the factory. I believe the clutch on this car is stock, but if I'm gonna upgrade it, I'm gonna go with like a, you know, McLeod or something that's a little bit heavier duty, can handle some more of the power this car is putting down, and that's just gonna make it heavier. So I did a little bit of looking into it. It turns out that Ford did not put a hydraulic clutch in this car, and I understand why. You really feel connected to the car when you have a manual clutch cable. There's no hydraulics involved, but it is a nightmare to drive around, especially around here in Southern California where you run into traffic everywhere you go. I get it that this isn't really built to be a daily driver. I don't daily drive this car. Thank goodness I have the Ranger for that. But even just kind of pleasure cruising around town, it absolutely sucks driving it around town. It's like you get out and your left leg is like twice the size of your right leg. I mean, I don't really have big calves to begin with, but I hit the gym, you know, I do my leg days. I don't skip leg days, and it's still hard on my legs to drive this car for more than an hour at a time. So I really don't like that it doesn't have a hydraulic clutch. I kind of wish they did that and that it put a hydraulic clutch in it. And again, I get why they didn't do it. I mean, everything about it is a manual, kind of just like hard parts. You can really feel in touch with the road. And that's actually one of the things I love about this car. I just wish they put a hydraulic clutch in it. And I know that you can convert it yourself, but it's like, yeah, anyways. The last thing about the drivability of this Terminator that I absolutely hate is how notchy that shifter is. I know I talked about the shifting position early on and how like your arm is completely just extended out to reach the shifter. But the shifter itself in the T56 is super notchy. And I know that like sometimes the synchro meshes go out on these things. My old T45 or T5 transmission that was in my old Mustang GT had the same problem, and it was hard to get it into reverse gear. That's not what I'm talking about. This car has that problem too, but that's kind of to be expected. But I mean, just first gear, second gear, third gear, just roaming through the gears and driving around town, you miss shifts all the time in this car. It's really notchy. It's not smooth at all. It's like full-blown race car from the factory. So yeah, a lot of people probably like that. I'm probably one of those people who's just like, I kind of wish this thing was a little bit easier to drive because then I'd probably drive it more. Moving around to the back of the car, I believe this is the first Mustang to ever come with an independent rear suspension. They put it in the Terminators, the 0304 Cobras. It handles fantastically around turns. A lot of drag race guys absolutely hate the IRS that comes in this car, and they tend to all swap it out for a live axle or a solid rear axle out of a Mustang GT or something along those lines, or a Mach 1. But I actually like the IRS for the drivability. What I hate about the IRS, and this is probably what the drag guys hate about it too, is that you get a ton of wheel hop. Now I know this is like this topic has been beaten like a dead horse about wheel hop with Cobras, because it happens to every single one of them. Even bone stock cars, you try to take off a little bit too hard and you got good traction, you get wheel hop. I had some old tires on this when I first got it. There were some 10-year-old Nitto NT 555s, and I didn't get a lot of wheel hop when I was driving around because I was like losing traction everywhere and it would just spin the tires, and it was a lot of fun. So I went ahead and changed them, and I put these 305 Nitto 555 R2s. These are like a DOT legal drag radial tire that you can take to the strip, or you can drive it on the street, and they've been fantastic as far as tires go. But with all that extra traction that I get from these also wider 305s, these 555 R2s, the thing just wheel hops everywhere in first and second gear, and like you just don't get anywhere. It just goes, and that's like me imitating the supercharger in this thing. That's what it sounds like when you're driving around with wheel hop on these big tires. And it's just not fun, because like you try to take off and do a nice hard launch and you're just hopping away through first gear and hopping away through second gear, and then finally you shift into third, and then it's a smooth transfer of power to the ground from the engine. So I just really hate that they have this wheel hop. I know that that gets fixed a lot of times when you do that like live axle conversion. I'm not going to go through all the trouble to switch this to a solid axle, because Ford designed this IRS with all the best intentions in mind. I'm not going to go around and just try changing it out to a Mustang GT and then give that guy my IRS like a lot of Cobra guys do. So anyways, wheel hop absolutely sucks. I absolutely loathe that thing. That says traction control, and it is the biggest joke of this entire car. Now, anybody who has a Terminator Cobra will tell you that that button is permanently turned off, and it is on mine too. However, it requires tuning to turn it off completely and have it be off every time you start the car. That traction control is like I said, it's a complete joke. I don't know what Ford was thinking when they put a traction control button on this car and they said that this is gonna help you gain traction. It doesn't. Basically, my understanding of that traction control, anytime the wheel speed sensors sense any of the wheels spinning faster than the other ones, it basically just cuts power to the whole car and hits the brakes or something. I don't know what it does, but the first time I launched it with that traction control still functioning, I damn near hit my head on the headliner and my passenger almost went through the windshield. So yeah, it is a complete joke. Traction control, I don't know what that was there for. It doesn't help at all. It actually makes things a whole lot worse because you could be going full speed into something and then you lose a little bit of traction and then the whole car comes to a screeching halt and you start bucking and hitting your head on stuff and it's just terrible. So I had my tuner actually go through the tune on this car and there's an option, thankfully, to turn that off completely, so every time you start it up, it's off. Actually, I think even if you hit the button on it, it doesn't come back on. So it's something that most Terminator owners do, but why did Ford do it from the factory? I mean, did they even drive this thing? Was it a legal thing? I don't know, but it was a bad idea, and I absolutely hate it. All right, I gotta turn on the car for the last item on our list of the 10 things I hate about my Terminator. It sounds really harsh every time I say that because I really do love this car. Surprised it even started right now. So if you can see that, right there, that is the battery light. That's the dreaded battery light on the Terminator Cobra, is that dreaded battery light. I know what that is. I knew exactly what it was when I first saw it. So as it turns out, Ford didn't really account for how fast the belt system on this car would spin when they put that Eaton supercharger on it. And what it ends up doing after a while is it spins that alternator, which is down there, way too fast, and it gets way too hot, and it starts to burn out. That's the alternator right there, it's hard to see. It starts to burn out the voltage regulator on that alternator. And when that happens, you have that dreaded battery light come on, and no longer is your alternator charging your battery. Now, I mentioned earlier there was that red top Optima sitting in my passenger seat, and now there's this much less desirable Duralast in here. I was driving to work last week, and in the middle of my commute, which is about 25 miles, the battery light came on. So I knew that I had a very finite amount of time to get to work before the whole car shuts off because it's no longer charging the battery. I made it to work and was debating on just having the car towed home. Thought to myself, maybe I could just get it home without worrying about that and maybe just put a new battery in it so it had a full 12 volts or whatever to start with, because my battery was at about 10.8 volts. And you don't want a low voltage battery when you're driving this car because it kills fuel pumps. It kills all kinds of really expensive things and things that can break things that are going to be expensive to fix. So like if you start to run lean or something, the injectors aren't really working right, you can blow this motor to pieces. So the last thing I wanted to do was run it lean. So I was like, okay, get a new battery, then just get straight home. So I did that. I went to AutoZone, I changed the battery out right there in the parking lot, and it made it home with like 11.8 volts, and that's okay. Made it here, that's all I needed. Because apparently it's a very, very common problem with the Terminator Cobras is that they blow through alternators left and right. So this company called Nations, I'm sure you've heard of them, Nations Starter, Nations Alternator, they have an alternator made for this that actually has an externally wired voltage regulator. It's not cheap, it's about $600. So it's about twice the price of a regular alternator, but it's supposed to save the alternator from burning out all the time due to, you know, like a lower pulley like I've got on this to give it more boost and stuff, and just that whole rotating assembly in there spinning a lot faster, and therefore, you know, burning out those alternators. So $600 later, I'm still waiting for it. It was on back order. Once I get it, I'm gonna go start digging this thing apart and installing it, and that's really why I'm not driving this car right now, because it just doesn't really have anything charging the battery. But yeah, I hate that Ford didn't really account for like, oh, we're putting a supercharger on it. How about we don't use the alternator from the V6 3.8 liter bone stock base Mustang and we use something a little bit better? Why they didn't think about that, I don't know. Ford did a lot of things right with this car. They did a lot of things that were really innovative and new, and it really was ahead of its time. But they borrowed so many elements from like old crappy base model Mustangs, probably just to make the pricing correctly. And I understand how manufacturers work, and they had to work with a certain amount of money to build this car. But where they made the sacrifices are really annoying, because it's hard for somebody to really go back and fix all this stuff 20 years later. It's 2022, which means this car is 19 years old, and believe me, it feels like a classic car driving it around with all this manual Notchy, can't reach the damn thing, crappy interior. You know, it feels like a classic car driving this thing around. By today's standards, you get into even a 2010 Mustang, which is only about 7 years newer than this, feels like it's from 3 decades later. So anyways, I just wanted to go through the 10 things that I absolutely hate about my dream car, which is this 2003 Ford Mustang Cobra. Again, just to reiterate, I don't hate the car. I absolutely love the car. It is an amazing, fast car that's a lot of fun to drive, and a lot of car enthusiasts understand why people love this car. I also understand why a lot of people would spend their money on another vehicle that's a little bit easier to drive, a little bit more fun to drive around town, not such a heavy clutch and all that stuff. But for me, this is what I grew up as being like the zenith, like the pinnacle of like badass Mustangs, and that's why I just had to have it, and that's why I bought it. So although I hate these 10 things, the car is amazing, don't get me wrong. I guess if I had to add a number 11 to our list, it would be headlights that have a lot of water in them thanks to whatever the seal was that they used on these things. I guess it's time for new headlights too. It's gonna go broke with this thing. Anyways, that's all the time I got for you guys today. I appreciate you guys watching this show, and of course chasing dust and driving line as a whole. We have a lot of really cool content coming down the pipe here. I just got back from King of the Hammers last week, and there's a ton of content coming from that trip as well. As always, go Team Nitto. We did some great stuff out there this year. I just wanted to shout out Nitto Tire for having me do this show on Driving Line's channel. I really love my NT 555Rs on this car. Front tires are also the NT 555 G2s, the second generation of the legendary 555s, and they are fantastic. I've had them in the rain, I've had them in dry weather, I've had them all over Southern California, and they're amazing tires, very quiet, very smooth, and a perfect match for the NT 555 R2s out back in the 305 size. Is there anything you guys absolutely hate about the Cobra that I didn't put in this video? Go ahead, drop it in the comments below. And if you guys enjoyed this, like, share, subscribe, show it to your friends, tell them this guy hates his Cobra, maybe we should go buy it off of him. I don't know, I might sell it to you, who knows? Just kidding, I'm not selling it. But once again, you guys, this is your pal Matt McAdam, aka Desert Chief, only on Driving Lines Chasing Dust. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching Driving Line. If you guys like this video, consider subscribing to our channel so you'll never miss any of the content we create here. Whether you're into trucks, Jeeps, imports, domestic vehicles, or anything in between, we are here to fuel your passion. So hit that subscribe button and we'll see you guys next time.